I was like, I need to test some of this out. So I'd put it in a vial and crack it next to a beehive, and they'd get all angry. So it was like having my own little like bee deployment bomb. As long as you're walking around like the deep jungle with the boots, you're going to be good to go. Equal document of piranha actually killing people. Believe it or not, they have only eaten corpses that have already drowned in rivers, like such as in boat accidents and things. As far as being snake infested, I wish.
Hey guys, welcome to the Survival Show podcast with me, David, and Craig, where it's our job to take you step by step through the mindset, skills, tactics, and gear you need to survive almost any crisis, emergency, or disaster. And our goal is to show you how to use the lessons you learned today to thrive in your life tomorrow. What's going on, Craig?
Life. Turkey hunting. Turkey hunting this time of year, man.
Okay.
It's a lot of stuff going around that and all kinds. Spring is a busy time for Craig Cottle. That's when I start getting tired and talking about myself in the third person like that, and who knows what's going to happen.
You're into your training season now, right?
I am, and it's been incredibly busy thus far, and there is no letting up until a month or two from now.
Yeah, you know what's up? It was really nice. And so I was like, this is fantastic because Joe, Joe, I just did a spoiler. We have Joe Flowers on the show today.
Shh, I'm not here.
Don't say anything yet, Joe, please. Shh.
But I keep bees, and I got my bees thinking we were going to have some great weather, and we are in this cold, rainy weather pattern with a new package of bees here, Joe. And so we are currently remediating that. But, Craig, you're going to like this. The Kickstarter, the Tiny Survival Guide Kickstarter, we're going to start shipping guides and cards next week. So that is fantastic. I am looking forward to that, but it's going to take like the next 2 weeks. But that's cool. So, Craig, bring us from here.
All right, guys and gals, our mission here is to help you progressively increase your survival IQ so you leave out of here better prepared at the end of the show than you were at the beginning.
Okay, guys, so coming up, even though I had a little spoiler, hey, Joe.
Hello.
We've got a pile of interesting topics with our special guest, Joe Flowers. Joe's the founder of Bushcraft Global. Joe's an adventurer, YouTuber, knife designer, writer, jungle survival expert, wilderness guide, martial arts instructor. I can barely say it. There's so much. He's also a zoologist, and he likes bugs. And in general, I met Joe a few years ago, and he is one of the most interesting men on the planet. So here's a few topics we're going to dig into today. Jungle dangers, myths, and survival skills. Piranhas and crocodiles. Venomous snakes. Edible bugs, knife design, martial arts, maybe. I know he's been in search of the world's most interesting animals. He loves bushcraft, beekeeping. We may get into a whole lot more knowing Joe as well as I do.
All right, guys, you ready to do this?
Let's get into this. All right, Joe, before we get into all this, there's something that's coming up that's timely and really, I think, a once-in-a-lifetime event. You want to tell the guys a little bit about this?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about this. June 10th through the 14th is the Global Bushcraft Symposium in Alberta, Canada. There's only been one other big meeting like this of all the legendary people out in the bushcraft survival and traditional skills field. We've got tons of amazing keynote speakers. We've got Morris Kahansky. He's not traveling much right now, so this might be one of your only times to meet Morris Kahansky. Lars Falt, international amazing survival instructor, started the has taught with the England SAS and started the Swedish survival stuff. Cody London is going to be there from TV, and of course 98.6 Degrees, the art of keeping your body alive. Lars Falt himself, he founded the Swedish Armed Forces Survival School. Les Stroud is going to be there too. You've got all these amazing keynote speakers, and then there's going to be a bunch of presenters too that are pretty popular in the industry right now. The whole goal is to try and spread out all these skills and contexts that we're learning through, everything that's becoming popular right now. Open exchange of philosophies, methods, best practices in the industry. Meet some of the great people who were there before the internet was even invented, and before, survival even started being written about in books, very, very in depth. And really, really, really a chance to see legends in the industry. There's going to be skills. I'm hosting a knife craft camp there. And there's an axe craft camp. There's all sorts of different camps. It's June 10th through the 14th, 2019. It's only going to be one. So do not miss it. Any way you can get there, you need to get there if you consider yourself a student or interested in anything bushcraft, because this is only going to happen once. You can find out more information on bushcraftsymposium.com. bushcraftsymposium.com.
Oh, it's fantastic, Joe. I don't think anybody needs to miss that if they can possibly make it at all. Really appreciate you making us aware. So for those that are listening, Morris Kahansky is going to be on a podcast coming up soon as well, if you haven't already heard it, depending on when all these go live. So you'll hear a lot more about the symposium, and it's going to be worth every second I listen to Morris, because I interviewed him and I got into talking about how to go about teaching skills and sharing skills and how he went about it and how he recommends it. And so it's just, legends like Morris Kahansky is just, and he talked about Lars and everything Lars has done there in that interview as well. So don't miss it, guys, if you can do it.
Man, this is incredible. They're all going to be talking together there. So it's like having all the martial arts instructors from all over the world come together and hang out and talk about stuff, or this, that, and the other. I mean, just to see that, camaraderie is amazing. I really can't wait. If you can bend time, find a way to get there, because you do not want to miss this. It's going to be incredible.
So, Joe, let's go ahead and get into the rest of the show today. Thanks for bringing that up, and let's do that by you just telling us about your background, if you don't care. So, Joe, David set you up to be the most interesting man in the world. Is that actually who you are?
No, I'm not the Dos Equis guy.
That's what I was wondering. Yeah. I was like, come on, man.
He can tie a tie really well, and I'm actually not so good at it. I just have a lot of passions, I guess, and that's what makes things interesting, is how passionate people are about stuff.
So tell me a little bit, because Joe, if you recall, you may or may not, we met last SHOT Show?
Yeah,
last SHOT Show
absolutely.
Last year, and chatted briefly. But for everybody that's listening, won't you go ahead and tell everybody some of your backstory, or as much as you want to tell, maybe how you got to where you are now, and how all these interests that you have put you in this place?
Sure. I'll try and sum it up real quick, because when you talk about yourself, it can get lengthy, I guess. Well, anyway, I watched Crocodile Dundee way too much. Guy was really funny, had a big knife, liked animals, liked survival. I, basically wore out the VHS cassette player watching that over and over and over again. And, my love for reptiles and amphibians led me to a degree in zoology. But like when I was looking back on all my elementary school notes and stuff that my mom, kept in the little Tupperware containers, I saw all these knife, drawings, and I've always been in the knives, back in the 90s. I have most of the Tactical Knives magazines, was into it at the very beginning of the quote unquote tactical knife era as a kid, got on the forums with the dawn of the internet. And then from there started writing about knives and other equipment and gear, because I actually got out and used it a lot. The editors recognized that. Some of the knife makers that were custom makers hated it because they'd get back like a destroyed blade. Eventually, I got up with Condor Tool and Knife and Tops Knives to do their designs. I think I've got like 5 or 6 with Tops. I'm at maybe, I don't know, at least 80 designs with Condor.
Yeah, nice.
I call that like a good start, because I'm like, there's so many that we've said no to. And they're not all pretty, but most of them are functional. There's some that I shouldn't have designed, but that's for another story.
I think it brings up a good topic too, Joe. If you don't mind me digging into this
Sure.
one before you continue on, is I think a lot of people need to understand that there is no perfect knife. Everybody needs to find the knife that works for them, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm assuming that's why you've got 80 different knives designed, because you've got to find that knife that's going to fit different hands, different environments, different this, different that.
It's all, encompassing what people are doing out there. And it's also what's popular. Sadly enough, people like, swords, but they're not bushcrafting with swords. But there's a need for those out there for people to make actual user swords. So I had to go into doing sword research and all that stuff, for instance. And then seeing, the variations of what people are actually using out in the bush on a day-to-day shows how those little intrinsic parts go into a knife design. And, everybody is going to have multiple knives. That's the cool part. You find one and you're happy with it, but I guarantee you probably after about 2 years, even though you think that was a holy grail, you're thinking about another knife. And for me, like before I designed, and even when I'm designing, there's like a knife that I always go to use. And I always grab that one coming out. For me, it was either the Skookum Bush tool or the Pterosaur by Brian Andrews.
Mm-hmm.
And now, like I'm still just grabbing other knives that are around. Those are like, oh, that's the one I'm going to take with me here.
Yeah.
So it's always changing.
Joe, can we dig in a little bit to your wilderness, your interest for the outdoors, animals, bugs, and all that? Kind of maybe a little divergence from knives, unless knives ties into that. But I'm really interested to hear that kind of backstory too.
Yeah, no problem. Knives do kind of tie into that because like as of right now, for instance, Condor wants me to design a karambit. And, I don't do much Krav Maga, but, karambits only have so much that you can do with them unless you look at the mouth parts of ants. And so I'm scanning electron micrographs right now to see why, these ants have such, horrible looking pinchers and try and get that in the design. I got into bugs in zoology. Mostly I went into bugs because I was really into reptiles and amphibians, still am, but my buddies who are into reptiles and amphibians were so into it. That was their only passion. I'm into knives, I'm into Godzilla, I'm into reptiles and amphibians, I'm into fixing my car, all that stuff. They are 100%, reptiles and amphibians all the time. And in the zoology world, it's not as easy to get a job with that. And at that time, I took my first entomology class and fell in love with that too. So I pursued entomology as my minor and concentration, and then got hired by NC State in the beekeeping and vegetable pest management, but in beekeeping afterwards, and worked for NC State University in the apiary department of entomology.
So is that where you went to school too, Joe? You went to NC State?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I almost went into the Marines, started, training and doing some of the PLC stuff with them, but then, man, when NC State told me, hey, you can live at this bee lab, free water, free internet, free utilities, and do all this stuff, which is basically like this old dilapidated house with like hundreds and hundreds of beehives in the back. I was like, I'm going to take this offer up because I get to work outside the whole time. Yeah, you get stung. One time I got stung 80 times, but it was really fun because, it was so different every single day.
That's part of the word, getting stung, I'm assuming. So, yeah.
Back then it was really cool because have you guys ever played paintball?
Yes.
All right. So, like when you're playing it and you get hit, it's like, it hurts, but I'm having fun. And if you keep doing it,
that's beekeeping.
Yeah. Well, I mean, after you keep doing it day after day after day, you probably don't care about getting hit by paintball. For me, that was being stung, on the hands and things like that. So like I never wore beekeeping equipment unless it was a particularly nasty hive because it was just so darn hot outside.
So what do you mean by, I haven't had bees, or we haven't kept bees since I was a kid, and I really didn't know anything about it. But how do you know it's a nasty hive?
They're mean right away. They clouding.
Come after you. They're aggressive.
You'll start getting dinged in the head. Like they'll do some kind of like dry run where they'll hit you in the head, and you'll see more and more and more of them. You'll see a level of agitation with clouding where the bees are kind of bubbling out of the top of the super. They're just not chill.
Nice.
I mean, after doing it for a while, you'll see, okay, these guys are tranquil.
Yeah. And the sound, right, Joe?
Yeah, the sound for sure about the mean ones coming around your head. You can hear them right away because they have a higher pitch. The sound is sometimes hard, though, because you can have a queenless colony, and that sounds a little bit different, too. If they're going through a queen succession, they'll have like a roaring sound as well.
So was that I'm sorry, I'm getting off on a tangent here. We got a lot to do, but this intrigues me. But so tell me about this sound. You're saying the whole hive as a whole will have a certain sound to it that's higher pitched?
Yeah, when their queen is dead or they're getting a new queen, they're in a little bit of state of agitation as well.
So is that them beating their wings that's making that sound?
Yeah, that's actually the muscles buzzing inside thorax where they're not. They can be moving their wings too sometimes, but yeah, it's basically that. They're going to be moving their wings when they're making a really loud, angry sound around you, and you'll hear it. It sounds like. Sounds like, a cartoon with Tom and Jerry or something. It was cool too. This is my last rant about that. Working for the lab was incredible. I got to make fires with my fire steel every day to get the smoker going, but I got so many stories for that. But one day we got this synthesized alarm pheromone. So the alarm pheromone is a pheromone that they have that makes them angry. I was like, I need to test some of this out. So I put it in a vial and crack it next to a beehive, and they get all angry. So it was like having my own little like bee deployment bomb.
Nice. So after this, Joe, where do you find yourself after this type of work at NC State?
Well, I met my wonderful, lovely, and beautiful wife, Ashley, and my boss at the time got a chance to move up to Pennsylvania. It was kind of offered more or less that I could move up there and continue to be a technician with them. But that wasn't in my long-term plans because my wife wanted to move up to where I'm at now, the mountains of North Carolina. So I worked for Syngenta Biotechnology for like 3 months and then moved up to the mountains. And that's where we're at now. They don't have a call for beekeepers here. And I don't want to do beekeeping full time now. I know that enough. So I've been running around doing my own stuff with the knife designs, with Bushcraft Global, the jungle stuff, teaching martial arts at the local wellness center, and all sorts of fun stuff.
That's really great, Joe. So let's dig into Bushcraft Global. You want to tell the guys what it is? How did it start? Kind of your passion behind that and where you take people and all that sort of stuff.
Well, I can tell you how it started in a really, really fast way. I had to take over an expedition when a guy was out of sorts with some of the authorities there, and I had to help him while he was figuring out what to do to get over the borders, and basically, help take over his expedition in the middle of Letitia, which, David, you've been to, right?
I have. Yes, I have.
Yeah. So it's like a village, and well, it's a town, dude. What would you say it is?
It's a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be, but it's a different world down there. No doubt.
Yeah. It's a town. I'd say it's a town. But I had been stuck there for like 2 weeks in the middle of the jungle, but in the town. And I hadn't seen anything creepy or crawly at all. So I found an American buddy who I became friends with, and he's like, you need to go to this place called Tanamboka Serpentarium to stay the night. And I went there and I saw all these amazing poison dart frogs and tarantulas that are just massive, and bats and possums and all this stuff in one night. And I like died right there. I was just like, this is amazing. I wake up in the morning and Goran, my partner now, comes out. He's just like smoking a cigarette, always him hawing with the tourists. Hey man, what do you do? And I'm like, well, I design knives and write about knives. Really? I love knives. Check this out. And he showed me a knife that he had. And he's like, and I was like, yeah, I like survival skills and stuff. He's like, you need to come to my house right now. And he showed me all his blow guns and fire making friction kits and all this stuff from the indigenous tribes. And he's like, Joe, I have this idea. I want to bring, Americans and people to learn skills from these indigenous tribesmen because it helps them keep a part of their tradition alive and also helps them monetarily. And it's really freaking cool, man. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, but I can't market it. And I'm like, well, I know a guy. And so that's how Bushcraft Global started. Goran and I worked together on different trips. Every single trip is a little bit different, David. Last trip was incredible. And I saw when I was in the jungle that night, I was like, I need to figure out a way to come back here because this is like my home away from home. Every time I wake up in the morning and I hear just that ambiance of chirping frogs and the greenery and the scenery, I was like, there's no way I can't not come back here. And of course, negotiations went with my wife, and I was able to start Bushcraft Global.
So how much time do you spend there, Joe, throughout in a 12-month period of time? How much are you down there?
It depends year to year. Sometimes I go down twice. Sometimes I go down once, like about 15 days normally. And then, of course, El Salvador I go to, but that's not as jungly as Tanamboka. The first time I was down there for like 35 days. I'd be down there more. The only hard part is finding babysitters. When the kids are older, right. I'm just going to bring them down there because my one daughter, Elizabeth, is friends with Donica, Goran's daughter, and they've met in Colombia a couple of times. So I go to Colombia, at least once or twice a year.
So, Joe, this is an expedition into the jungle. And specifically Colombia-based, although I think you guys went over to Peru this last year. Is that correct?
So the whole idea is everybody who signs up likes knives, likes survival, likes using their hands. It's a knife-based survival trip where it's not like necessarily hey, let's kick some butt and bring you to the hardest part, and walk through all this horrible jungle. Although that's what you had to do, David.
But it may happen. Be prepared.
Yeah, it may happen. Be prepared. Like that last trip, man, it was awesome because we were like, Goran's like, hey, Joe, let's do some lake survival. And I was like, cool. How much do these guys have to hike? Oh, just 2 miles. Perfect. And so they barely did like 1/10 of what we did. And we had people with like, what's that machine called that helps you sleep at night? PAP machine.
Yeah, PAP machine.
Yeah, we had
sleep for sleep apnea.
Exactly. Yeah. So we've had people, of all fitness levels be able to come out on the trip.
So this trip, Joe, this is open. This is for people of all fitness levels. Anybody who really would like the experience of getting out into the rainforest, into the jungles, the biodiversity there. You want to maybe just speak to who this is for and what enrichment they'll get in this in their life, maybe a new awareness of some things. What would be the big takeaways for people if they wanted to come on a trip, and how do they do that?
The biggest takeaways that you get from this trip would be that it's an experience that also encapsulates training. But the training is because you're doing it, not because we gave you a seminar. Although there are some quick lessons in there about different things. Hey, this will kill you. Don't touch it. Don't fall on this. This is how to use a knife so we don't have to stitch you up, or a machete. You learn a lot of the stuff by doing it as an experience. The idea is we want people of all backgrounds to be able to come on this. You're paying us for a vacation, essentially, an adventure vacation. So we're not starving you. You're eating most of the time when you're down there. A lot of the rich cultural food that we have available. David, we did some cool breads on sticks last time.
Nice. And great coffee every day.
Yeah, Colombian coffee. And you see from your day-to-day experiences with the tribesmen and that how they're getting by with very, very inexpensive gear, how they're getting by just being reliant on themselves. And through that, it gives you a chance to have more respect and reliance on yourself too. So when you go back home, hey, all right, I've got a hole in this tarp. What would Alberto do? What would, they do? And to see how people get by in this walk of life really, really helps you appreciate what we have, at least here in North America and anywhere else as well. And, we do custom trips too. So if you've got like a son and a daughter you want to bring down there, you don't want them to stay, 12 days out in the jungle. We can do 5 days. We can do 4 days with just one indigenous tribesman, and, various different things where they're like, hey, I want to do the jungle trip. Awesome. But I want to do some tourism stuff in Leticia and go check out the island where we get to hold monkeys and stuff. That's no problem too. But the Bushcraft Global trip itself, I know for sure is unlike any other trip out there. The way we have it designed is because we were, lovers of this area, survival and stuff. And every single year it's something kind of different. And that's what makes it really interesting. When David was down there, we did the big jungle hike. Last year, we were peacock bass fishing. Sometimes you have to pay $5,000 to fish for peacock bass out in lakes in Colombia and Costa Rica, etc. And that was pretty cool. Except for when I have $150 fishing rig, and the Matisse go and grab a tree and rig it up without a reel and are able to catch a 25-pound peacock bass, and I barely caught any.
That's an experiential learning right there again, right, Joe?
Yeah, it's not the bow, it's the Indian.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. I love that.
And guys, if you're interested in hearing or actually seeing, right, Joe, quite a bit more, I think there's a 6-part series that I did while I was there on the trip.
There is an epic 6-part series on YouTube made by Ultimate Survival Tips. Just a disclaimer, he made it very, very, very epic. And how would you say?
Epic.
Epic.
Definitely epic.
You don't get stopped by policemen when you're down there, mostly, unless you're David.
Or miss your plane flight, or many of the other things that happen.
Yeah.
Only happen to me when the camera's on.
Yeah, exactly.
My life is otherwise totally boring, but when the camera's on, right, Craig? No joke. Stuff just happens.
Yeah, so use that as a guide of stuff that happens, but don't be scared afterwards. It's really, really easy. I mean, we had a whole group of people from Wisconsin last year, and it was a fantastic trip. Just with some of the best people I've had out in the jungle.
So, Craig, I think this leads into your question as I'm looking at it on the notes here about fears people have. You want to get into that with Joe?
Yeah, I guess the big thing is for people that are familiar with North America, maybe mixed hardwood forest or maybe even boreal forest, going to a jungle area seems, there's so many unknowns. So with those unknowns, what are the things that we can tell them on this podcast that, hey, don't be worried about it, it's not that bad, or there's snakes everywhere. Are there snakes everywhere? Those kind of things. What can we say to those people that might be interested in doing something like that?